About 2,300 years ago, there were two superpowers in the world. In Asia, Iran's Hawamari Empire was the empire which extended from today's Balochistan to Far East and Syria, i.e. from Syria to Egypt. The second superpower was Europe's Nasironian Empire. This empire was made a great power by the Shahenshah Sultanate. However, many Gurjars of the world were included in it. Only two Greek regions, Sparta and Great, were not a part of it. To make it their part, they had also prepared an army whose soldiers' muzzles were specially kept longer so that they could move forward easily by tearing the enemy's ranks. But this happened in 336 BC. Emperor Philip was suddenly murdered by his general by stabbing him with a dagger. After the death of the emperor, his son Sikandar III was killed. This son is known as Tariq Sikandar the Great. I am Zaid Abaid in the first installment of Battle Series Season 3. We will tell you the story of this general. Shah Alexander was great and wanted to explore Iran and fulfill his father's dream, but for this, he needed a Peshwai, king of the gods, so that he'd get some help. There was a temple in Greece which was called Temple or the Temple of the god Apollo. It makes predictions by talking to the god Apollo. That is why this woman got a lot of importance in the Greek society. A meeting was considered necessary so that she could know about her mother's fate, and then she could take a decision. That is why the oracle did not come out of the temple and did not make any move. She refused to meet him, but Alexander was not going to listen to her refusal. He entered the temple and took Akko by the arm and dragged him out. The lady said in a frightened tone, "Alexander, you are a great warrior. No one can defeat you." It was heard that Alexander left Akko's arm and said, "Now I do not need any other Peshwai." This sentence, these words are enough. He came out of the temple with his army. They gathered the Muslims and became ready to attack Iran. Their destination was that part of the Iranian Empire, which is today called Turkey, in which there were 4,000 soldiers. This was the year 334-34b. Free Brahmins were emperors. They got the news of the arrival of the Greek army, but still they did not prepare their weapons for fight. Instead, they gave the task of stopping the Greek army to the governor of Turkey, who was their mother. By defeating the Greeks, the Turks entered the Asian region. In the first battle, Skandi-Azam faced the Iranian army, which was brought by the command of the governor to stop the Greeks. Two commanders were leading this army. In 334-34, the first battle between the Greeks and the Iranians was fought on the bank of a river, which is called the Battle of the Ganges. In this battle, the layout was such that the Iranian army was standing on one side of the river and the soldiers on the other side jumped into the river. It rained heavily on the Iranians, but they kept moving forward by stopping the arrows with their arrows. Somehow they reached the banks of the river and started pushing back the Iranian forces present there. It became easy for the rest of the Greek army to cross the river, because during this time the entire Iranian forces were on Alexander the Greek and his companions who were crossing the river. Therefore, the rest of the army easily crossed the river and attacked the Iranian enemies with full force. During the battle, there came a moment which could have proved to be a turning point for Emperor Alexander. He was fighting with one of the two Iranian commanders when suddenly the other Iranian commander, he also reached near him and attacked Sikandar-Azam's head from behind with an axe. The axe pierced the helmet on his head and reached his hair but could not injure his head. The commander pulled back the axe and had just raised his hand to attack again when one of the emperor's companions killed the attacker. Sikandar narrowly escaped while in this dilemma. He killed the other Iranian commander with his own hands. After the death of both the commanders, the Iranians were defeated and they fled from the battlefield. The way ahead was open for Sikandar, and he first fought against the Iranians. After the death of Grani, Sikandar-Azam moved toward Syria and Iraq while searching for the true lions of Turkey. During this, one day he also discovered the kingdom of Godin. This city was about 80 kilometers away to the southwest of Turkey's present capital Anukr. This city still exists today. When Sikandar entered the city of Greek Phtia, he saw a chariot, i.e. a horse carriage in shape. This chariot had 100 bands tied with a rope. It happened that it was tied so skillfully that its ends were not visible, and it was impossible to open it. Legend had it that this chariot was owned by the first Imran of the city, and whoever opens a rope tied to it will be the king of Asia. When Sikandar-Azam heard this, he took a dagger and hit the outermost rope, due to which the rope hidden underneath was cut, and Sikandar-Azam easily opened the rope. Now, according to the legend, he could become the king of Asia after prediction of the oracle of Egypt. This was the second time that Azim was sure of his victory against Iran. The interesting thing is that when Conqueror Azim was getting information from the oracle and getting such signs, then at that time his enemy Shamshad Arrow saw a dream that Greek soldiers were standing in front of him. There was a sword around the Greek soldiers. Skandari Azim was standing in front of the dress of an employee, and then he entered an Iranian temple, and inside it, Azim never comes out from there again. The Iranian emperor woke up in the morning and asked the courtiers about the interpretation of this dream, but Jum made him happy by telling him that the emperor will defeat Skandrias. That is, he will win. The Greek army will be stunned and Alexander will either be killed or will run away. Hearing this, he was not happy before that time and decided that he himself will go to fight with Conqueror Azim with his army and will get his name added to Azim Fatim by giving him Cast Fast, which made him a superpower at the time. But friends, when he informed courtiers about his decision, a person present there named Mr. Mukulfat. This person was a Greek military expert. Actually, thousands of Greek soldiers used to join the Iranian army for money and good employment. You can also call them soldiers of Kara. So this Greek Cremias was a very smart and experienced soldier. He misled the Firas that you can join the army yourself by taking the army. Don't go to fight Alexander. Instead, send me as a commander. If you go yourself and any harm comes to you, then the entire Iranian Sultanate will be destroyed. Zaire said that the whole Sultanate stood with the king only. If the king is gone, then everything will be gone. If you betray us. Then his blood boiled in his anger, and he started taunting the Iranians for being cowards. The emperor's taunt of a Greek from a foreign country on his community was very unbearable, and he got the redeemed killed. The soldiers were taking him to kill him. Then he was saying that this is injustice. This is cruelty. Darius will have to pay the price of this unjust punishment in the form of his throne and sultanate. Friends, the person who was giving Danish threats to the emperor was killed. After this, Darius sent his governor with his troops to the city of Babylon in Iraq, from where he again had to do something toward Iran. The stories started happening. Friends, the person who was giving Danish threats to the emperor was killed. After this, Darius sent his governor with his troops to the city of Babylon in Iraq, from where he again had to do something toward Iran. The stories started happening. He knew that Greece was so brave. Well, he had 30,000 soldiers at that time. The rest of the soldiers who were with the Greeks were either masters of the cities that were conquered, who had to be found, or were from the cities that had been conquered. Now it was like this, that the Iranian force was coming from Babylon to fight against Sikander the Greek. Among them, Conqueror Azim was waiting for his army to camp in the area of Issus in Turkey. This area was also near a river. Obviously, the news of the arrival of the Iranian army had been received, but they did not have a correct idea of its route, that from where it would come, on the basis of wrong intelligence. They thought that perhaps the enemy Iranian army of Darius would come from the direction of Syria. They went toward Syria with their army. Conqueror Azim went to Sham. When the CBI went, the Iranian emperor, in opposition to him, reached this SP from the north in the north. He captured the Issus and captured the wounded and injured Greek soldiers present there. They were freed after cutting their hands, so that they can go and show Conqueror Azim their condition and scare his army that how cruel is the army of Darius. When these soldiers reached this Conqueror Azim and told him the whole story, he turned back and headed towards the north. They started moving closer, and soon they reached near the city. Coincidentally, this time also there was a river between them and the Iranian army. Now, the same date was born, friends. Music. Why am I not sure? The battle was going to be fought at the place of Shalij, the graph of which was not in favor of the Iranians but of the Greeks. The battlefield was a place between the hills and the sea. It was impossible for the Iranian Emperor Darius to fight the battle by first deploying his army on a large scale and to defeat the enemy. Because of this, it was impossible in the same geographical area. Anyway, the Iranians prepared for the battle. The army of Shamshad was divided in 3 groups according to the traditional method of battle. In the center were infantry, that is, infantry with maces and swords. Behind the infantry in the center were the infantry, and 3 soldiers were on their royal chariot. This chariot was kept by the 10,000 Indian rupees royal gods, which were apart from the rest of the army. There was a river in front of the Iranian army. There was less water in the river, so some Iranian soldiers were crossing it. The soldiers on the right of the Greek army were standing at a considerable distance, and were standing ready, so that as soon as the Greek army attacked the Iranians crossing the river, these infantry squads would attack them from behind. To counter this order of the Iranian army, Sikandar Azam had given a little lift to his Greek army. His army was very less in number, but he had placed infantry squads in the center in between his rows. While the infantry squads were standing on the right and left of these soldiers, he himself was also included in the horsemen on the right side. In front of Azam's position were the enemy archers. The Iranian cavalry who had come from Darya Abdul were also standing at a considerable distance to the right of the Iranian archers. Now the battle started in this, that first of all the Iranian cavalry squads on the right flank attacked the Greek forces crossing Darya Abdul from the right flank. Along with this, an attack was also launched from the Greek army's side in such a way that the Greek infantry soldiers themselves crossed the river, and the infantry present in the center of the Iranian army attacked them. The infantry was attacked by the people on both sides, but Sikandar Azam did not attack the river because he knew that there were archers standing there. Their presence there meant that the enemy did not want to attack the river, but wanted to get rid of them. He stopped there and stood in a position to attack the Iranian army from behind. Sikandar Azam and his Kotwar friends pushed these Iranians so far away on the river that they could not even help their army. During this time, the Iranian archers stood at their place on the river because the archers could not attack by moving forward. If the Iranians had attacked here, then perhaps the hands would have been free. Well, the Iranian emperor had made a mistake by making only 3 dashes here. Taking advantage of this mistake, Sikandar Azam turned around, and with his infantry and some infantry dustans, he pushed the river away and attacked those archers who were present for defense. Being Iranian, they showered a lot of arrows, but the Greeks mostly focused their arrows on their own. With experience, the rocks reached the archers with very little loss and wiped them out by entering the ranks of the infantry standing behind. Their discipline also reached the infantry standing behind the archers, and their cleaning was also the opposite. Iranian archers and infantry standing here and there could rush towards him. It is said that they had come very close. Legend has it that the Iranian emperor had also attacked his Greek warrior with a dagger. This dagger had hit Alexander the Greek's leg, due to which he got slightly injured. Friends, during this, what happened was that seeing the battle so close, the horses of the chariot got frightened, and it seemed that they would enter the enemy ranks with Emperor Darius. Some of the emperor's guards quickly got him down from the chariot and put him in another chariot. At that time, the Greek soldiers had come so close that the emperor was scared for his life. Instead of continuing the fight, the chariot ran and fled from the battlefield. He was in such a hurry that he left his camp and the food of the harem behind. As soon as the news of his escape was felt, the rest of the warriors and infantry who were fighting with the Greeks present in front of them also fled, and 2 daughters were also now in the captivity of the Greeks. It is said that when Skandar arrived at the battlefield, he fled from the battlefield. Azam entered the royal palace and saw gold and silver utensils and other goods there. He said that it seems that this is what it means to be a king, that is, one who has so much wealth is the same thing. Skandar Azam gave permission to his soldiers by threatening them, but they did a good job with the demon of the harem of Emperor Arias. These women were crying and wailing in the camp that perhaps the Iranian emperor has been killed. But Sikandar Azam assured them that the emperor is alive and a good thing will be done with you people. It is said that the Iranian emperor's wife and daughters were very beautiful, but Skandar Azam not only kept them away from him, but also ordered his courtiers not to mention the beauty of his women in front of him. In the palace of these women, taps were installed at such a place that even their voices could not be heard by the common soldiers. Alexander the Greek did not want to be removed from his army after falling prey to the beauty of any woman. He himself used to say that gold and sex and pleasure are the 2 things that make me feel that I am a funny person and a bottle. Perhaps he was annoyed by the feeling of being funny, so he kept Iranian women away from himself because he understood why not to be important. However, a few years later he married outside the tractor. After the incident of I burst in Shalu, Azam again entered the Sham serial, and many of the current Libyan lions, on hearing trouble of the king, themselves laid down their arms. It was not murder, so the people of the city thought that Sikandar would not be able to kill Tyre, but Sikandar was not a Greek to be humbled. He built a bridge from the shore to the city with the help of wood and stones. The people of the city built a bridge from the shore to the city with the help of their foreign ships on this bridge. They put the ships of the murderers on this bridge and collided with the bridge. But in the end, Sikandar-Azim succeeded in making this saying rich. During this time, he also ordered more than 200 foreign pulses from Cyprus and other foreign lions. In this way, he had more powerful foreigners than the people of the city. The fleet was ready. Then the Jaimini army of Sikandar-Azim from the bridge side and the navy from the seaside attacked with full force, broke the weak part, and from inside Azim entered the city with his force. Meanwhile, the army who were attacking from the bridge side also entered inside by breaking the walls. This way the city became known. The Greeks carried out a massacre here and killed 5,000 enemy soldiers and 4,000 lions. 20 to 30,000 citizens were enslaved and killed. So those people who had made the central temple of the city in Ibida village were forgiven by Alexander the Greek. In 100 BC, Tyre also came under Greek occupation. Along with the bridge built by Sikandar-Azim, soil and stones from the sea started joining together, and this bridge and the island became a part of the land. Both joined together. This city is still there, and the story behind its foundations is still remembered. The story of that bridge is still there, which had once connected it to the mainland for some fear. The matter was such that the stones were not going to reach the walls of Bulandshahr, or they had to. They could not reach with full force. So, to break the walls, it was necessary that the stones of the stones hit the wall with full force and hit the right target. For this, it was very important to have a high place to stand on, but there was no such high place near the city. Sikandar-Azim found a solution to this. On his orders, the Greek army built small hills around the city by putting mud, which were as high as the wall. Then, by building a platform on these hills, stones were pelted on the walls so much that these walls broke at many places. After this, the Greek army surrounded the city from all sides. It entered Egypt, and its result was the same as that of Tyre on Monday. Its citizens were enslaved and destroyed. Now Egypt was the biggest empire. But friends, whatever happened in Egypt, music, was a part of the Iranian Empire, the entire Egypt. But the people there were already free from the slavery of the Iranians. When Alexander the Great entered Egypt, the Egyptians welcomed him like this. They sang that he is their savior. He has come as a savior for them. In every city of Egypt, people welcomed him. Wherever Alexander the Great went, people threw flowers on him and raised slogans in his favor. Alexander the Great was taken to Egypt, whose Arabic name was Manes, which was close to present-day Cairo. The local religious leader here made him wear the clothes of a pharaoh like Egypt and placed the same crown on his head which the pharaohs used to use. In this way, Alexander the Great became the pharaoh of Egypt, and in this capacity, he remained the Egyptian god, that is, the son of the sun. He also made Egypt the protector of Rome. There is a city named after him on the coast, called Alexandria or Sikandaria. The followers of Sikandar-Azim built a tower or a lighthouse to guide the ships outside. It is included in the 7 wonders of the world. During his stay in Egypt, Sikandar-Azim also got a third bishopric related to him. Friends, in this, Azim's family was famous that his followers were right, not Shah Philip. In this, Azim also believed in being the son of his gods, and he wanted to confirm this belief. For this, he went to a temple which was the same for the Egyptians as the oracle place is for the Greeks. There was a temple here. In temple mythology, the Greek gods were considered to be one. This was the reason why he went there and met its chief priest. No one knows what was discussed in this meeting, but after coming out of the temple, Sikandar-Azim was very calm and composed. It is also said that he is the son of gods, not Philip. Sikandar-Azim is the son of gods, the great co-oracle of galaxy. Then after opening the chariot in Godin, and after that we were getting good news after good news from within him as well. That means now he was sure that he would be successful in every situation and would never face failure. So without any worry, he started preparing for the bloody war from the third birth. In this birth, he also included the rest of the Iranian Empire, which included the areas from Iraq to Balochistan. Alexander the Greek, who now considered himself the king of the Iranian Empire, wanted to know about all these things. What happened in Peshawar? Friends, there was a third claimant who was also Iranian. From where did Alexander Azim reach India? After the Battle of Sarawi in 333 BC, half of the Iranian Empire was ousted. Present Turkey, Shamli, Palestine, and Egypt were captured by Alexander the Greek. But from Iraq to Balochistan, the Iranian Comanche Empire was still in place. Its emperor Darius was sitting in Babylon and preparing to fight Alexander. He had called soldiers from every corner of the Sultanate. Elephants and cavalry had also come from India and Afghanistan. The emperor had sent pagemen to offer advice to Alexander the Greek many times, but Alexander smiled every time. By the end of September, both armies had reached near the city of Herzegovina, situated on the banks of the Tigris River. The number of Greek soldiers was 47,000, and the number of Iranian soldiers was between 53,000 and 5,300 to 1 lakh. The Arisarani and Sikander Greek both knew that this decision was a good one. The loser would neither have his kingdom nor his life. So both of them put their full strength and war experience in this war. The Iranian emperor had learned a lot from the battles. He understood that he had made some mistakes in the shock of the battlefield and the relation of the army. He had decided that this time he would not make any mistake. Rather, he would defeat the enemy in the battlefield of his choice with the weapons of his choice. Music. On the first day of October 331 BC, near Heracles and the Greek army were standing in front of him. The end of this battlefield was coming. It was an open field, on the right side of which there were small hills at a great distance. The Iranians had uprooted them and leveled all the three to the ground. Now their house Swargate was found here. They could not stop them. The second thing the queen did was that between her right side and the middle side, they could not stop them. That is, in front of the infantry, 15 Indian elephants were also standing in the center. These elephants were a powerful and very special weapon of the Iranian emperor. This weapon was specially brought to defeat the tall Greeks. The name of this weapon was chariot, that is, horse carriage. Iranian chariots usually had 2 or 4 horses. These chariots were manned by archers and armed soldiers. Horse carriage. Iranian chariots usually had 2 or 4 horses. These chariots were manned by archers and armed soldiers. Along with the wheels of the chariots, long blades with sharp edges were specially attached on both sides, which turned it into a terrifying weapon. During the war, these chariots would enter the enemy ranks. The long blades attached on both sides would make a path by cutting the enemy's branches. In this way, the attack of the chariot would create a crack in the enemy's ranks and gaps would be created. The Iranians could enter into these and wipe out the enemy. The Iranians had 200 such chariots. Thousands of Iranian reserves were also deployed at considerable distance behind the emperor. So, friends, the Iranians were the best in all 3 matters: numbers, weapons, and battle in the field. The Battle of Barbi started on the Greek army. They had the advantage that the battlefield and the weapons were all of their choice. They had their own motives, and you have already known in the beginning that the army of Sikander Azim was less than them. Seeing all this, Alexander Greek had also fled from the enemy. Now, if the war was fought in a traditional way, it would prove to be very costly. Hence, he changed his tactics like a military commander and decided to fight the war in an unruly way. The main point of the Battle of Barbi was that somehow the emperor's wife should be taken home because if he is caught or killed. The cavalry squad was on the other side of the army, but instead of making them stand in rows, they were made to stand in the form of a bow. As you can see in the map, on the right side of this command, there were infantry in the center of the army. Along with the center, on the right side too, the Ghazwar Dustan was arranged in the shape of a command. The Greeks themselves were leading the right side force. Out of compulsion, this line was such that it looked like a long iron line whose ends were pointed inwards. Behind the Greek infantry in the center, a reserve squad of 7,000 soldiers was also standing. When the line was complete, Azim first moved according to his plan and was standing in front of the enemy camps with some infantry. He started moving rapidly on his right side, as if he was going very far from his army. So he thought that perhaps he wanted to take a long detour and attack his army from behind. So he started moving his army forward parallel to the Greek army on this side. Inside this, there was a Greek plain. Because of this, One side of the Iranian army was cut off, and now it was far away from its army. The chariot was going far away, and a gap was being created in between, due to which Alexander's army had the power to attack the Iranian king at any time. When Alexander Azim and a part of the Iranian army which was following him, both of them had gone far away in the battlefield, then the Iranian king also made his move. He pushed his dangerous weapons, i.e. chariots, forward, running on crops in different rows, moving toward the foot dusters of the Greek army. It seemed that they would enter the ranks of the Greeks and destroy their army, turn the tables. But as these chariots came closer, the Greek forces made a surprising move, which was obviously planned by them beforehand. As the chariots moved forward in the ranks of the Greek army, the Greeks were moving backwards, i.e. the chariots themselves gave way. Thus, empty spaces were created in the Greek armies. As soon as the chariots entered these empty spaces, the archers present among the foot dusters of the Greek army showered arrows on them. The soldiers standing on both sides of the empty space started ramming their long lances into the bodies of the soldiers. Many soldiers rammed their lances into the wheels of the lances and overturned them. Within no time, most of them were overturned, and their horses and soldiers died. After elephants, the second dangerous weapon of the Iranians was elephants, but there is no mention of elephants attacking the Greek army in any major way. Yes, there are only a few paintings in which elephants are shown. It is possible that elephants were present there initially, but then at some point they were removed from the battlefield and sent to the Iranian camp. It is also possible that the threat of elephants was now over for the Greeks from the Iranian side. So, the battle became very intense. The Iranian and cavalry of the cavalry attacked the horsemen on the left side of the Greek army. On the other hand, the right part of the Iranian central army also moved forward and attacked one part of the Greek center with all the cavalry of the center. During this, the other part of the Greek center, which had not been attacked yet, attacked the rest of the Iranian center in front of it, which had already reached the battlefield from where the hill started. There was no way to move forward. At that time, the cavalry of the cavalry attacked them. Sikandar Azim fought these cavalry for some time, but after that he went in some horsemen, along with Dustin, left from there, while the rest of his forces kept the cavalrymen busy there. So, with their Chandrabhishan soldiers, which they had separated from there, they stood on the Iranian Mercury force. Mercury force attacked Iran. A part of their infantry was already fighting the Iranian center. In this, the Greeks also attacked the center. Now, from one side, the Greek infantry, and from the other side, the Iranian infantry were attacking. The Iranians' provision was getting surrounded. In a few minutes, the Greek cavalry came close to the enemy. On the other side, the commander of the cavalry, Basis, who was fighting on the right, also got the misconception that maybe Alexander was going to turn around and attack his cavalrymen from behind. He gave the signal of retaliation to his Dustin. These Afghans ran away from the enemy's defenses, but they did not disperse much, but still they were fighting in the battlefield. The rest of their army was not able to help them. They could not do this, meaning that on the right flank the Greeks had got the information, and on the other side in the center, also the situation was going to be in their favor, and the Greeks were surrounded badly. Now it was time to call their Dustin standing in reserve and start the war. So, the battle became very intense. The Iranian and cavalry of the cavalry attacked the horsemen on the left side of the Greek army. On the other hand, the right part of the Iranian central army also moved forward and attacked one part of the Greek center with all the cavalry of the center. During this, the other part of the Greek center, which had not been attacked yet, attacked the rest of the Iranian center in front of it, which had already reached the battlefield from where the hill started. There was no way to move forward. At that time, the cavalry of the cavalry attacked them. Sikandar Azim fought these cavalry for some time, but after that he went in some horsemen, along with Dustin, left from there, while the rest of his forces kept the cavalrymen busy there. So, with their Chandrabhishan soldiers, which they had separated from there, they stood on the Iranian Mercury force. Mercury force attacked Iran. A part of their infantry was already fighting the Iranian center. In this, the Greeks also attacked the center. Now, from one side, the Greek infantry, and from the other side, the Iranian infantry were attacking. The Iranians' provision was getting surrounded. In a few minutes, The Greek cavalry came close to the enemy. On the other side, the commander of the cavalry, Basis, who was fighting on the right, also got the misconception that maybe Alexander was going to turn around and attack his cavalrymen from behind. He gave the signal of retaliation to his Dustan. These Afghans ran away from the enemy's defenses, but they did not disperse much, but still they were fighting in the battlefield. The rest of their army was not able to help them. They could not do this, meaning that on the right flank the Greeks had got the information, and on the other side in the center, also the situation was going to be in their favor, and the Greeks were surrounded badly. Now it was time to call their Dustan standing in reserve and start the war. After turning back, he thought that he could do so, but perhaps these troops were standing far away. Biryani Shahanshah did not have enough strength to call him. The enemy was upon him. At one point, he even took out his sword to show that if the enemy came close, he would kill him and kill him by fighting. But then on the advice of a loyal person or on his own understanding of the situation, he suddenly turned his chariot and once again tried to escape from the Battle of Endon. According to the Greeks, there were so many bodies around him that even the charioteer could not control them. The Shahanshah got scared and got down from the chariot and fled sitting on a mare. Seeing him running, the Iranian soldiers standing in reserve also ran away. Then the same thing happened which happened in the Battle of Assumption. As soon as the news of Shahanshah's escape was spread, the Rani force, which was getting heavy on the Iranians, surrounded Alexander's Godavarn with 3 Atra. Therefore, some Indian Dustans of the army bypassed the Greek force and attacked the Greek camp, which was behind the army. Greeks were looting in the camp. The commander of the army saw the situation getting worse. Then a warrior came running to him and asked him to go to Kader Azam for help. Then Alexander the Greek was about to attack the Iranian emperor in Taku, but his commander sent a message to him in time. Alexander turned his horse and set out with all his army to help the trapped Greek army. But before he could reach there, the Iranians who attacked the Greeks had fled. Friends, many squads of his army and commander Basis were also with the emperor in the city of Iraq with their soldiers and warriors. From here, all this force again went towards Afghanistan, so that a new army could be prepared by staying at a little distance from Azam and then come back and fight. When the Iranian emperor was going to Afghanistan, Alexander Azam was outside in Taku, but his commander was very lazy because Alexander had to find out about the other warriors on the way. Otherwise, such a situation would have arisen. It was possible that forces would come out of these passes, and Azam had the courage to retreat. So, first of all, during the siege, the rulers entered Babylon and made it their headquarters. Then they became capable of capturing another important city, Sos. Their next target was Iran, located 61 kilometers north of Shiraz. About 27,000 troops were present to capture the city, but the route of sea plus passed through mountain passes. In one of these passes, the Iranian army did not take up a position at a very high altitude. When the Greek fortuner tried to enter this pass, 2 Iranians showered arrows and stones on them and forced them to surrender. But during this time, the Greeks somehow captured a few Iranian soldiers. One of these prisoners became the guide of the Greek forces. With his help, this Qadri Azam, along with his soldiers, took a detour through a mountain path and reached behind the enemy. Their soldiers took positions right in front of the enemy. They came back and attacked the Persians with full force. This battle is called the Battle of the Persian Gate. This gate was also captured by the Greeks. In the first loss, the Greek army killed a huge army. Alexander the Greek had given his soldiers the freedom to kill every adult Iranian man and take over the houses. As soon as the army got this information, they started killing people in the city and looted the houses mercilessly. Apart from gold and silver, precious trinkets and utensils were also broken. Efforts were made to find gold, silver, or diamonds in them. On the matter of killing, there were fights and murders among the Greek soldiers, which was a common thing in this area. 4,000 soldiers and 500 soldiers were given advantage. Nizamuddin was a very holy city. There were big places of worship and magnificent mohallas. It was also considered a symbol of the great political and religious power of the Iranians. This could easily become a mark of rebellion against the Greek occupation, but it is the voice of the destruction of the police. Friends, the queen of all, the emperor, the security of the first, from the fall of the palace. This happened when Alexander had attacked Greece in a big way. First of all, Alexander put a burning torch in the palace, which caused the building to burn. Then the Greek army started burning the buildings around it. After this, Alexander was moving towards Afghanistan. During this time, the emperor who was with him rebelled and arrested the Iranian emperor, and he himself was going towards Afghanistan, where he was also the emperor of Iran. This is Nadarius. He was tied up in 3 horses in 0 and made to sit in a cage. A cloth was wrapped around the horse, so that the emperor could remain hidden from the eyes of the rest of the people in the convoy. On the other hand, Alexander the Azim had also become aware of the claim of Basra to become the emperor and another son-in-law. He continued with Basra and you. During this, you can see on the screen the rule that Alexander adopted. Friends, while traveling with hundreds of people, Alexander reached the Greek convoy at last, but somewhere near Afghanistan, he attacked this convoy. But before their arrival, Music, Sikandar Azim, entered the enemy camp running on his horse. He was looking for his 3 and Basis. Before reaching Basis, Azim had fled with his army, but the Greek army ordered him to find them. But alas, the emperor would not come alive. When the soldiers reached him, he had died. Before escaping, the wife had stabbed him with a knife. But there was news for Azim in this. That very night, in his last moments, he had committed treachery. He had done a song of it. He came near the dead body of the woman, put it on the dead body, and expressed regret. He also started singing. After this, friends, we entered Afghanistan and reached the Afghan area, Bactria. He took the enemy captive. He was tied between 2 trees and given a sword. After this, Sikandar Azim kept fighting the people in the areas of Somalia, Afghanistan, and Central Asia for many years. He had a sword in his hand. He also married Roxana, the daughter of an Afghan chieftain, and by making many of his friends, finally ended the rebellion to a large extent. On the other side, the commander of the cavalry, Basis, who was fighting on the right, also got the misconception that maybe Alexander was going to turn around and attack his cavalrymen from behind. He gave the signal of retaliation to his Dustan. These Afghans ran away from the enemy's defenses, but they did not disperse much, but still they were fighting in the battlefield. The rest of their army was not able to help them. They could not do this, meaning that on the right flank the Greeks had got the information, and on the other side in the center also the situation was going to be in their favor, and the Greeks were surrounded badly. Now it was time to call their Dustan standing in reserve and start the war. After turning back, he thought that he could do so, but perhaps these troops were standing far away. Biryani Shahanshah did not have enough strength to call him. The enemy was upon him. At one point, he even took out his sword to show that if the enemy came close, he would kill him and kill him by fighting. But then on the advice of a loyal person or on his own understanding of the situation, he suddenly turned his chariot and once again tried to escape from the Battle of Endon. According to the Greeks, there were so many bodies around him that even the charioteer could not control them. The Shahanshah got scared and got down from the chariot and fled sitting on a mare. Seeing him running, the Iranian soldiers standing in reserve also ran away. Then the same thing happened which happened in the Battle of Assumption. As soon as the news of Shahanshah's escape was spread, the Irani force, which was getting heavy on the Iranians, surrounded Alexander's Godavarn with 3 Atra. Therefore, some Indian Dustans of the army bypassed the Greek force and attacked the Greek camp, which was behind the army. Greeks were looting in the camp. The commander of the army saw the situation getting worse. Then a warrior came running to him and asked him to go to Kader Azim for help. Then Alexander the Greek was about to attack the Iranian emperor in Taku, but his commander sent a message to him in time. Alexander turned his horse and set out with all his army to help the trapped Greek army. But before he could reach there, the Iranians who attacked the Greeks had fled. Friends, many squads of his army and commander Basis were also with the emperor in the city of Iraq with their soldiers and warriors. From here, all this force again went towards Afghanistan, so that a new army could be prepared by staying at a little distance from Azim and then come back and fight. When the Iranian emperor was going to Afghanistan, Alexander Azim was outside in Taku, but his commander was very lazy because Alexander had to find out about the other warriors on the way. Otherwise, such a situation would have arisen. It was possible that forces would come out of these passes, and Azim had the courage to retreat. So, first of all, During the siege, the rulers entered Babylon and made it their headquarters. Then they became capable of capturing another important city, Issus. Their next target was Iran, located 61 kilometers north of Shiraz. About 27,000 troops were present to capture the city, but the route of sea plus passed through mountain passes. In one of these passes, the Iranian army did not take up a position at a very high altitude. When the Greek fortuner tried to enter this pass, 2 Iranians showered arrows and stones on them and forced them to surrender. But during this time, the Greeks somehow captured a few Iranian soldiers. One of these prisoners became the guide of the Greek forces. With his help, this Qadri Azam, along with his soldiers, took a detour through a mountain path and reached behind the enemy. Their soldiers took positions right in front of the enemy. They came back and attacked the Persians with full force. This battle is called the Battle of the Persian Gate. This gate was also captured by the Greeks. In the first loss, the Greek army killed a huge army. Alexander the Greek had given his soldiers the freedom to kill every adult Iranian man and take over the houses. As soon as the army got this information, they started killing people in the city and looted the houses mercilessly. Apart from gold and silver, precious trinkets and utensils were also broken. Efforts were made to find gold, silver, or diamonds in them. On the matter of killing, there were fights and murders among the Greek soldiers, which was a common thing in this area. 4,000 soldiers and 500 soldiers were given advantage. Nizamudin was a very holy city. There were big places of worship and magnificent mohallas. It was also considered a symbol of the great political and religious power of the Iranians. This could easily become a mark of rebellion against the Greek occupation, but it is a voice of the destruction of the police. Friends, the queen of all, the emperor, the security of the first, from the fall of the palace. This happened when Alexander had attacked Greece in a big way. First of all, Alexander put a burning torch in the palace, which caused the building to burn. Then the Greek army started burning the buildings around it. After this, Alexander was moving towards Afghanistan. During this time, the emperor who was with him rebelled and arrested the Iranian emperor, and he himself was going towards Afghanistan, where he was also the emperor of Iran. This is Nadarius. He was tied up in 3 horses in 0 and made to sit in a cage. A cloth was wrapped around the horse, so that the emperor could remain hidden from the eyes of the rest of the people in the convoy. On the other hand, Alexander Azam had also become aware of the claim of Basra to become the emperor and another son-in-law. He continued with Basra and you. During this, you can see on the screen the rule that Alexander adopted. Friends, while traveling with hundreds of people, Alexander reached the Greek convoy at last, but somewhere near Afghanistan, he attacked this convoy. But before their arrival, Music, Sikandar Azam entered the enemy camp running on his horse. He was looking for his 3 and Basis. Before reaching Basis, Azam had fled with his army, but the Greek army ordered him to find them. But alas, the emperor would not come alive. When the soldiers reached him, he had died. Before escaping, the wife had stabbed him with a knife. But there was news for Azam in this. That very night, in his last moments, he had committed treachery. He had done a song of it. He came near the dead body of the woman, put on the dead body, and expressed regret. He also started singing. After this, friends, we entered Afghanistan and reached the Afghan area, Bacteria. He took the enemy captive. He was tied between 2 trees and given a sword. After this, Sikandar Azam kept fighting the people in the areas of Somalia, Afghanistan, and Central Asia for many years. He had a sword in his hand. He also married Roxana, the daughter of an Afghan chieftain, and by making many of his friends, finally ended the rebellion to a large extent. Friends, you've already seen this whole story in very interesting detail in the first video history of Afghanistan Season 1. If you did not like it, then its link is available at the end of the video, and you can also watch it by clicking on the I button here. They entered Hindustan by the way. First they captured Swad, then moved towards Punjab. But in Punjab they had to face a king named Horan, who surprised them, whose story we will tell you. In 326 BC, the empire of Alexander the Greek had spread from Europe to Asia. He had also reached Hindustan in small numbers, and from here he went to India. His mission was to get a complete idea of Hindustan, so he moved forward, and after getting the current news, he entered Punjab from ATT by the name of Dras Singh Abdul. In front of Dras Singh, and in the area between Jhelum, was the Sultanate of Taxila or Takshashila. The king of this sultanate, Humayun, had defeated the empire of Alexander the Greek till here. Everything was going well for Alexander, but his speed was stopped by King Porus, the ruler of the area between Jhelum and Chenab. King Porus refused to bow down before Alexander Azam or give him way. Without bowing down, Alexander's army could not advance further in India. He had the power to do so. The commander sent him a message to come and meet him on the banks of Jhelum and bow your head. King Porus replied that yes, I am bowing down on the banks of the river, but Alexander Azam, with his army and weapons, understood that his dream of exploring India was not possible without bowing down to King Porus. In 326 BC, the Greek army was defeated in the area of Chandapur on the banks of the river. King Porus was present with his army today on the banks of the river. Friends, it was the monsoon season, and due to the stormy rains, Alexander was standing tall for the Greeks. The challenge had been made, so did he accept the challenge? King Porus praised Sikandar Yunani season 3 Azam this much. Show the battle. Music. The army that Sikandar had taken for the Battle of Jhelum included about 40,000 infantry, 7,000 Guswar, i.e. 7,000 cavalry. Apart from this, King Hamad of Takshashila also sent 5,000 Hindustani soldiers to help Sikandar. Together, the number of Greek soldiers had reached 520,005,2000. To compete with this army, King Porus of Jhelum had 35,000 infantry, 4,000 cavalry, i.e. cavalry. Apart from this, he also had at least 130 elephants and 300 chariots, i.e. chariots. All these soldiers together were divided around 50,000, i.e., with a slight difference. Sikandar Azam's army was more than that of the king. Here Raja Porus had an advantage that the monsoon rains had opened the Jhelum River for the Greek army, due to which the king had enough time to give practical order to his army. Raja Porus had established his position by setting up small posts far and wide. In these posts, Indian soldiers kept an eye on the Greek army for 24 hours. Apart from this, the Indian cavalry squads also kept patrolling along the river, so that if the enemy wanted to attack the river, they could be stopped. Another arrangement the king had made was that he had placed his elephants right in front of the Greek army along with the river. These animals were mobile and moving, so on the other side of the river, the horses of the Greek army started running away in fear. If they had not attacked, they would have needed a large number of strong horse-drawn boats, but the thing was that they had left their boats near the river in a dress coat with some soldiers. So the solution was that he ordered his soldiers to break these boats into different parts and bring them to the banks of Jhelum on bullock carts. Here these parts were reassembled and the boats were completed, but the problem was the same, that Daryopar could not be done in the presence of King Porus's army and elephants, and if those soldiers tried to do Daryopar from any other place by leaving their camp, then Indian army would also reach there together. So there was only one way to do Daryopar, that is to deceive the king that the planet Kurmi moon will remain here till the sun ends, and then do it during this time. In this, the Greeks made a program to implement this method. They issued an order that the Greek army squad should stand on the banks of the river and give a warning every day as if they are going to do Daryopar. After this order, friends, the Greeks and the army squads and the infantry spies would stand on the banks of the river every day, play the war drums, shout loud slogans, and give such an impression that they would jump into the river right away. They would read, and the attack would begin. Seeing such a scene, the soldiers of the Indian army would also start their patrolling in response. But after a lot of fear, the Greek forces would return to their camp, and the Indian brothers would also have to be defeated and pushed back. The Indians used to do daily patrolling with great force. They would see that the soldiers fighting with the enemy were reaching the Greek camp. From these reports, all the generals of Porus started to understand that the enemy was collecting money for the battle. They concluded that they would not attack before a year's time had passed. That is, this daily planning is only to fool us. Actually, the Greek army was collecting money for itself and for the army. King Porus had warned his army to be alert daily, but they kept going out every day, kept playing the game, and kept returning before evening. In comparison to this, friends, the Indian soldiers of Porus and their posts also started getting tired. Everyone was sure that there was still a lot of fear in the war. There was no use in tiring oneself out every day. His plane was now sleeping, so the Greek commander started planning to cross the Jalem from another side. I told him that the Greek horsemen Dustin among the fellows had to travel along the river and reach a better place. They started the search work. They found a place 27 kilometers away from their camp, where the two parts of the river were very narrow and the depth was also not much. The biggest thing was that there was a dense forest on both the sides of the island and the other side of the river, i.e., on the Greek side. This forest was enough to hide the Greek army from the eyes of the Indians. Alexander the Greek's plan was gradually becoming successful. King Porus was convinced that the attack would happen only after the monsoon, from where the Indian army present on the banks of the island could easily see it. The army was also deployed outside the camp so that the onlooker could feel that the Greek king was present inside. After this, he ordered his army to light up the camp according to the news, so that the enemy could get the idea that the entire Greek army was present in the camp. After making all these arrangements, he took 5,000 dustmen and 10,000 infantry soldiers with him and sent them 27 kilometers toward the island. They started from where they had planned to cross the river. Soon the Greek army reached their destination, i.e., near the river. They had earlier hidden their boats in the jungle near the river. Now, on the orders of Conqueror, these boats were put in the river, and the Greek army started crossing the river with these boats. In a few hours, he ordered his cavalry to move towards the forces of King Porus. The horsemen moved ahead, but they got a big shock. Another scattered river was standing in front of them. The Greek soldiers were not able to understand where this second river came from. Have they lost their way in a war? Friends, you know that even a small mistake in the calculation of the egg can change the course of the war by 5 years. That is why the Greeks were also very worried. After a little running around, they found out that what they were thinking was the male land, i.e., the land on the banks of the river, was another island in the west, which was on the right path. Only the second one was hidden from their eyes till now, but it was not such a big deal. Rather, after estimating the depth, he started his journey in the water on his horse instead of boats. The foot soldiers also got drowned in the flowing water till the garden. This way, the entire Greek army was surrounded by Dariopper. A stormy rain started along with the noise of the clouds. This time, during the noise of the clouds, the Greek forces were drowned and no one was allowed to hear. Alexander the Greek successfully brought the army to the banks of the Jalem River in his plane, but as soon as he reached here, his secret was revealed. By that time, the Indian army file was definitely there, but his family used to patrol the river along with the river. Similarly, a horse squad saw the Greek army and reached Porus and informed him about the arrival of the enemy. But friends, King Porus was very impressed with this news. The enemy sent some small squad to the river to inform him about the arrival of the enemy. Thinking that the army of the Greek camp in front is crossing the river and attacking us, he sent one of his sons to the river. 2,000 soldiers and 120 horsemen, i.e. for eunuchs, were sent to fight the Greek army. This proved to be a big mistake of King Porus. This army was much smaller than the Greek forces. As soon as these Indian forces reached near the Greeks, the horsemen had attacked them and wiped out the enemy. 400 Indian soldiers and Porus's son were also killed. Due to the rain throughout the night, the ground near the river had become marshy. The wheels of the chariots would get stuck on this ground, and they would not be able to attack at high speed. They had the power to attack Muxar, which had boosted their morale. But friends, Sikander Azam suffered a loss. It is said that when his beloved horse reached the place, then he understood that he had been deceived. A large part of the Greek army had already crossed a river from some other place. King Porus left a large part of his army on the banks of River Jalem in front of the Greek camp, so that they could stop the Greeks from crossing the river. Later, he set out to fight the Greeks with 20,000 infantry, 2,000 soldiers, and many elephants. The cavalry was on the elephant from this elevated position. From this elevated position, he was keeping an eye on the situation of the battlefield. In this way, the battlefield reached the battlefield of Azam. But here also, Alexander made a strong move to hide the left wing from the enemy's eyes, i.e., he went behind the guards and made them stand in its OT. On the left side, the infantry, and on the left side, under the command of the Greeks, some cavalry squads stood in front. The Indians standing at a distance were guessing that Azim had very few troops inside. Now, after hearing the order of the Indian army, it was like this that cavalry squads were standing on the right and left side, and chariots were standing in front of the cavalry. In between were the infantry, and in front of the infantry were elephants. There was an empty space of 100 to 100 feet between the elephants, from where the infantry squads could move forward and attack. From this position, King Porus attacked and showered arrows on the cavalry standing ahead of it. In a short while, the horses of the cavalry and the soldiers on them were either killed or were running away. After this, the Greek cavalry in the center of the army was attacked. The Indian cavalry standing behind the left flank, whose chariots had become useless, attacked the horsemen standing behind the left flank, but the Greek infantry in the center did not attack. Now the fact was that the Greek cavalry which was attacking was very less in number. The royal men were watching the scene from their elephants. They were not even able to see the enemy cavalry, because they were hidden by Alexander. So they ordered the horseman Dustin, standing on the other side of the center, to leave his position and reach the sword bay and help the horsemen fighting there. They thought that by doing this they would defeat a few of Alexander's cavalry, after which they would not have any fun in meeting the infantry. Thus the Indians on the right flank and the chariots standing behind them vacated their positions and went to the left flank, where the Greeks inside were firing with Indian cavalry. As soon as these cavalry reached that side, Dustin, the horseman hiding behind, was ordered to attack. These cavalry squads came running and reached the sword bay, and after taking a detour from the Indian cavalry, they attacked the Indian cavalry from behind. These Indian horsemen and their chariots were surrounded by 2 turrets when the Greek arrows were continuously raining arrows on them from one side. In no time, the Indian soldiers were wiped out. The right and left arms of King Porus's army were broken. Only the center infantry and the cavalry standing in front of it attacked the Indian infantry from the right and left sides. The center army standing in front with its long lances also attacked the Indian cavalry by passing through the 100 feet gap between the cavalry and the elephants. When the Greek army was advancing, the Indians had a great opportunity to destroy them. The army of King Porus had such a great weapon, which was much better than the Greek commandos. These commandos could cause severe damage to the Greeks by raining arrows on them while advancing, but arrows could be fired only by keeping protruding part of these arrows on the ground. The technique of these commandos was such, their structure was such, but it was necessary for this. The ground may be dry, but you know that the ground had become marshy, and the bow used to slip there, and while trying to shoot arrows in this mud, the bow of Porus's soldiers kept on slipping again and again, and his aim started getting missed. No one could help Porus. The Greek soldiers kept on moving ahead successfully while avoiding his archers, and after this the infantry from both the sides also clashed. Now, friends, here a battle of Gumsin took place in which the soldiers of King Porus fought with all their might. During this, Porus's elephants caused a lot of damage to the Greek army. These elephants were specially trained for war. The enemy's soldier who came in their way would be crushed under their feet. When they used to wrap him in their ears and throw him on the ground, these elephants pierced their long teeth into the bodies of the enemy's soldiers and defeated them. The soldiers sitting on the elephants were also continuously raining arrows and arrows on the Greeks. Alexander the Greek also made a strategy to deal with the elephants, and soon the Greek archers defeated them. They began to surround the elephants by separating them and aiming at their legs. Seeing this, dozens of Porus elephants went blind. Shahid was injured, and the Mahouts controlling them also got killed. Now these elephants were becoming sharp and were wandering in the battlefield. The scattered elephants also started throwing soldiers on them. To save themselves from the countless arrows coming from the front, the elephants turned around and sent their own infantry galloping backwards. These elephants caused immense damage to the Indian army. Even today, friends, Porus's elephant is an example which is used at times when one of your own may harm you. Friends, this is the battlefield of elephants. After the Greeks withdrew from the battlefield, the victory of the Greeks started becoming heavy, but one elephant was still standing in the battlefield. This was the elephant of King Porus of Jalem. but it was getting surrounded by the enemy for its own selfish reasons. But the king was not ready to leave the battlefield. He was continuing the war with some of his soldiers. During this, his second son was also killed. King Porus had received many wounds from arrows and spears. On this occasion, he also fainted due to fear from an arrow, but he did not leave the battlefield. According to the plot of the story, Raja Porus was a very good human being. He was specially trained as long as he was sure that his master, King Porus, was safe. He kept standing in the battlefield and did not run away. The elephant used to attack the Greek soldiers moving towards the king and force them to run away. But when the elephant started realizing that his master Shahid was injured and could fall down at any time, he sat down on the ground by kneeling down, so the elephant would not attack his king, but would take him down. Perhaps this would also be his last chance. Friends, after the elephant sat down, the spirits of the soldiers of King Porus also started breaking. The kings explained to them that now there is no use of fighting. The best thing is to get out of the battlefield before the enemy encircles them. The king accepted their advice and, choosing the 5-footed path, he ran away from the battlefield on his own hands. Behind him were the Indian soldiers with hats and saris. When the news of the trouble reached the king's soldiers who were in front of the Greek camp, they also ran away. The Greek soldiers present in the camp on the river also crossed the Jalem, and while running, started taking advantage of the Indians. Sikandar Azam also kept a third army in the area between his camp and the place from where he had crossed the river. This army also got trapped in the area between the rest of the forces at some point during the battle. 12,000 Indian soldiers were injured and 9,000 were arrested, while the Greek army, the loss is said to be up to 1,000. But friends, you know that the description of this war was written by the Greeks, and the date written by Phaedon cannot be trusted too much. So this number is definitely ours. There's exaggeration in it. So friends, after winning the war, Sikandar Azam sent his soldiers to arrest the king and present him before him. These soldiers arrested King Porus in a wounded condition and brought him when he was presented before Sikandar Azam. Blood was oozing from his wounds. King Porus was a very strong man. It is said that his height was about 7 feet. He, even in the wounded and imprisoned condition, in a grand manner like a king, asked the Greeks, "Tell me what should be done with you." Then a king asked another king, and Bahadur accepted his oath. He got King Porus treated by his best doctors, not only gave him back his rule, but also included the Mashid areas in his kingdom. Friends, in that era, fighting was common. They used to do this so that big armies or big kings are not made their enemy, because in this way they had to face difficulty in their future battle. So they did the same thing with King Porus. King Porus captured Kabul 20 times, and later many others also joined him as pawns. After the capture of King Porus, the doors of Hindustan were open for the Greek forces, but according to Top, the war with King Porus had caused a big loss to the Greeks. This battle and the martyrdom of Hindustan Muhammad had demoralized the Greek army. Now they were hesitant to advance. When Skandayazam reached the banks of the Vyas River, while fighting, the morale of his army had fallen badly. But another powerful kingdom of Hindustan was preparing to fight them. This sultanate was spread from Bengal in the east to Punjab in the west. Its Darul-Uloom was part one Patra, or the present Indian city of Patna. Near the sultanate, there was a large number of troops from King Porus. When the Greeks came to know that now they have to face another very big Indian power, they revolted. Remember, the soldiers are the friends who stay out of the country for long marches. One of the things that is required for them is to do simple marches, so that they have to face a big army of powerful umpires on foot. Then their morale gets weakened, and they started returning home. Alexander the Greek tried a lot to convince them, and showed displeasure a lot. But he was not successful. Finally, in front of the stubbornness of the Greeks, Alexander the Greek surrendered. He decided on the Iraqi city of Babul Jahan, which was the headquarters of their Asia Empire at that time. According to Micro, the Greek soldiers attacked the Ganges. The Greek soldiers had revolted, refusing to do so, but this date itself is an illusion, because Sikandar Azam never reached near it. The rebellion of the Greek army took place here on the banks of the Bas in Punjab. 12 friends. Sikandar Azam had promised his soldiers to return, but he wanted to do some simple rituals while returning. Before leaving India, he started his journey from Punjab toward Singh. On the way, He had to cross Multan when the creamy wrestlers of Multan refused to lay down their arms. The commanders made a big mistake in the enthusiasm of the Greeks. They jumped inside a banana tree with a handful of soldiers, but during this the rope broke, and Sikandar Azam got trapped inside the banana tree. The creamy wrestlers attacked him with full force. There was a tough fight in which many of Azam's companions were killed. During this, a creamy archer shot an arrow at Sikandar Azam from close range, which hit his chest, and he got badly injured. In a little fear, the rest of the Greek soldiers also somehow entered inside the tree. After a tough battle, the Caliphate was conquered. Seeing Sikandar Azam soaked in blood, the Greek soldiers scattered and killed the entire population of Multan, and badly devastated the city. It took many days to fill Multan and make it healthy. Azam now started his journey toward Babylon with his army. During Lashkar Kushish, he had also established a city in Punjab, which he named Mehboob God. This beautiful city is still a part of Pakistan Punjab. The second city, which was called Nikaya, meaning victory among the Greeks, was established at a short distance from the second fail, but now neither the city exists nor its effect is visible. The Greeks entered the present Subsing from Punjab with their army. They captured a large part of it too. Then they also reached Behror while traveling in Dras Singh. They conquered about 5,000 small and big cities and villages in Hindustan. After Fatuha, they moved from Singh toward Iran via Balochistan. Their army Balochistan reached Iran, from where Sikandar Azam went to Babylon. He died in Babylon in June 18323 AD at the age of 32. His last moments were spent in unconsciousness. There are many theories on the reason for Sikandar Azam's death. One theory is that his teacher Aristotle, who was alive at that time and was in Greece, had prepared a poisonous medicine which was sent from Greece to Babylon. This medicine was mixed with wine and was given to the Greeks to drink. Why did Aristotle poison him? If he did, then it is said that a great conflict had developed between the two. But friends, modern historians do not believe the theory of poison to be true. In their opinion, Azam's death could be the result of the tiring war, the changing weather of the foreign country, and the wounds he received in Multan. Or it could also be that he became unconscious due to excessive drinking. There are theories, because no one knows the reason behind his death. It is known that Sikandar Azam's Fatuha and his great empire proved to be a completely useless exercise, because immediately after his death, everything fell apart like a pack of cards. The story of Sikandar Yakani ends here, friends. But we have already shown you the complete story of how his sultanate fell apart in the second installment of History of Afghanistan Season 1. Its link and thumbnail are present at the end of the video. Friends, the third mini-season of the Great Generals and Battles series ends here. If you have not watched this season from the beginning, then touch here and here. Here you will see how Sikandar's sultanate fell apart like a pack of cards.